Alright guys, how's it going? I am here in Dundee on the east coast of Scotland at Roam HQ. If you guys don't know what Roam is, Roam are the guys that built up my camper van. It's Sam and Duncan, and aside from being totally awesome at building camper vans, they're freaking awesome climbers as well. Like, check out this board behind me in their very own van building workshop. How awesome is that? Every week I get asked questions about my camper van from you guys on YouTube, because, well, my van's in most of the videos. So I thought I'd do a video with Sam and Duncan at Roam all about how they built up my camper van to be the perfect camper van for an outdoor person's lifestyle. So without further ado, let's go grab Sam and Duncan for a chat about vans. Alright guys, so this is Duncan. He's one half of Roam Campervans, which built out my camper van here. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, my old van, right? When I came to you guys to build this van, my old van was so rubbish for charging things. I remember like the battery was always like going low, and my laptop was always running out of charge, and so that was a bit of a nightmare for me, especially when I was, you know, going camping in places kind of far from anywhere where I could charge anything. So yeah, how did you sort that out with this?
Okay, so for off-grid vans, there's a few components that we'd go for to keep it nicely usable for off-grid. First and foremost, we've got solar on the roof. We've got a large 300 watt panel on the roof that just keeps it charged up if you're parked for long periods of time where you're not moving around. As with a normal camper van, we also have battery to battery charging. So that will charge using the alternator while you're moving. So if you are driving in between stops, that will charge the battery in between. And the final thing that you really want is a good sized battery setup. So your typical camper van might only have a 100, 150 amp hour battery. In here we've got about 450 amp hours. So that just really makes sure that you can run things like your fridge, charging your phones, laptops, all your lights can be on, and you can be parked up for, you know, really quite long periods of time before you're going to start having any issues. And if you're somewhere sunny where that panel can be sucking up all those rays, you're really pretty much going to be able to stay indefinitely with the battery bank that big. So
I can totally vouch for that, because, you know, since I've had this camper van, I've been touring basically the UK, and as we all know, UK is renowned for having rubbish weather, particularly Scotland. And I've never run out of battery in here. I'm always able to charge cameras, like, you know, GoPros, MacBook, you know, the whole plethora of electronic equipment that I have for doing this YouTube channel that you guys are enjoying. So for the viewers, are there any specifics that you would say about the stuff you've mentioned that would be particularly good to have?
yeah, so as mentioned, solar panels, depending on what you're running, you probably want to be looking for off-grid use 150 watts upwards. If you need to charge anything larger like fridges, laptops, we would usually go for something a bit bigger than that, so, you know, 250, 300 watts if you are wanting to run a lot of electrical goods. In terms of your battery setup, that'll depend a lot on whether you're going lithium or AGM. So this van has AGM. With that, you will want to go a little bit bigger, so we've gone 450, which is pretty beefy. You could get away with less. Lithium, you can go a little bit smaller because they have a more usable capacity, so you can run them flat, essentially, unlike AGM. So.
All right, nice one. Cool, let's move on to the next one then. But basically, I'm constantly, like, when I'm winter climbing, I've constantly got wet clothes. You know, I go swimming in lochs in Scotland, constantly got like wet stuff, so I wanted somewhere to dry everything. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so we've got a gear drying cupboard in this van. So essentially it's a water sealed, so it's all sealed off, nice waterproof vinyl on it, box, and it's got a fluting from the heater and a vent down the bottom as well, so it vents outside the van. So basically, just as Robbie needed, you can chuck all your wet gear in. It's got a little hanging rail as well. You can turn on the heater, and it's just really going to help dry out all those clothes. As you'll know, in a van, having wet gear lying around is just a bit unpleasant, and it makes the air feel a bit damp and clammy, and it's not very nice. So having that tucked away knowing it's going to be separate and it's also going to dry off and be nice and usable the next day is pretty handy.
That's really handy. It's funny because it's one of those things that I wasn't sure how much I was going to use it, and actually I use it all the time. In fact, I was on a trip in the north of Scotland in the Cairngorms, and I was on like this winter climbing trip, and all the winter climbers I was with were so jealous because they realized how amazing this thing would be for just going to some like really remote places where they wouldn't have anywhere to dry their clothes and dry their gear, and they could just stay there for like literally weeks on end and just dry their clothes every single day. It's just flipping awesome. I've used it absolutely loads, and the cool thing is if you're worried about it taking up like space, then when it's not working as like a drying cupboard, it can be used as a storage cupboard.
Absolutely.
You guys put some little hooks in there so you can put like some clothes up. I actually have been using it for like my bin.
Yeah, fair
to
enough.
keep the bin completely out of the way.
Yeah.
And it closed. Yeah, that's easy does it there. Is there anything specific you would mention about that?
So I would recommend lining it. So we basically, all the panels that went in to make that up were lined with vinyl. You could use vinyl, you could also use like some plastic or acrylic or something like that. Just make sure it's nice and watertight. We sealed all the joins as well, because what you wouldn't want would be like water running down and getting into all your cabinets and things. Also just helps to stop any sort of mildew or anything like that. Another thing I'd recommend is we've got a fluting going down under the van so that you can get some fresh air in there as well. It just helps to make sure that you're not getting like all that air building up inside and then coming straight back out. You might get kind of warm, damp air. So just keeps it nice and ventilated. So
Awesome. Brilliant. Okay, so the third thing I wanted to talk about was in my old van when I was coming back from a crag, coming out from a climbing day, and I was sweaty, soaking wet, and all I wanted was a good, clean, if there isn't a loch or a river there to jump in, I kind of wanted a nice shower, but I wanted a shower that wasn't going to be inside the van and taking up loads of room. So how did you fix that for me?
So we opted for a nice outside shower. So we have basically just at the back of the gear garage, just a shower fitting with an extendable hose there. And that's hot water from the water heater, just so you can have a nice outdoor shower. You could also hose down if you were into biking and stuff like that. You could use it for hosing down bikes, boots, things like that. We also have little anchor points on the doors, so you can have these half closed, and then you can have a cord between them, and you can have a shower curtain as well. So if you do want a bit of privacy, you can have a proper shower pretty much anywhere, which is really nice. And as Robbie says, it doesn't take up that valuable space inside, which is quite handy.
Yeah, and I can vouch for how useful it's been for just so many things. Like you said, like cleaning muddy gear as well. Yeah. And if you've got a dog and it's gonna come in, and it's got muddy paws, like getting the shower out, cleaning the paws, brilliant for that. The thing I remember being quite worried about was water and how much water a shower uses. So I think it'd be quite interesting if you can remember how big the water tank is in here.
I think, is it a 90 litre?
Yeah, it's a 90 litre. Yeah,
so,
I remember that. Yeah.
We went quite large so that you have plenty of water for showering as well as all your sort of food and things as well. So.
And I would say that actually, if I have maybe one or two showers in this, I can probably get on top of that, between 5 and 7 days of heavy water usage for cooking and drinking and filling my water bottles straight up, So probably a week's worth of water for a couple of showers and all the use that you get out of a water tank. So I think that's pretty hefty, pretty good
size.
Good amount, good size, yeah. So should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Cool. If you're going outdoors on adventures, you need tons of space to shove all your crap. And I think everybody's a little bit different. Some people are going to be chucking skis, ropes back in there, bouldering pads, family bags, little duffel bags for your family and everything like that. For me in particular, I remember in my old van, it wasn't a fixed bed, so there wasn't a lot of space underneath the bed, and I was always having bags absolutely everywhere. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you sort of did the storage in this van.
So the main storage is in the very, very large gear garage we have in this one. So by having a raised fixed bed, you can really make the most of the space underneath it by having a large gear garage. On top of that, we really tried to just use all the available space around that as well. So little things like your wheel boxes, we've built in some storage above that. That's something you could do as well. We have above the water tank, again, just a little cubby that goes in there. So that's really good for just smaller bags. We've even got a little stash on the little space above the gas locker, again, just for knickknacks and things.
Like Haribo.
Yeah, like Haribo. Yeah, perfect place to store your Haribo. Inside the van, we've got loads more storage as well. So things like making use of overhead spaces can be pretty useful. So overhead lockers is something we'd really recommend because, yeah, it just gives you a good amount of storage up off the ground where it's not using up floor space. We've also got over at the front, reuse the sort of cab shelf, because again, it's space that's already there. You can reuse that and just make the most of it.
Yeah. No, I think that was fantastic, and I mean, like, on my travels around the UK so far, I've chucked all manners of gear in here. You know, double racks, multiple static ropes, lead lines, big my big Yeti cooler there with like full of food and stuff, and I'm also bouldering pads as well, and I've never had an issue with space. So you nailed that one really good. So yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, our final one is very climbing specific, but I get asked all the time about this. Now, in my old van, I actually bought it and it came with a Beastmaker 2000 fingerboard. I thought it was sick, the fact that the van actually came with it already attached. And I kind of bought this van not thinking too much about it, and I said the same thing to you. I was like, I want a fingerboard in my van, but I want to make it even more challenging. I want it to be able to be removed so that I'm not constantly bashing my head off it on the walk out. So tell me a little bit about this fingerboard setup you got.
Yeah, so this was an interesting one. It was a good little challenge for us. So essentially, we've got a fingerboard mount built onto the beam that goes over the side door, and we've got on top of that a removable fingerboard mount, or a couple of removable mounts, which you can just remove with these hand wheels. So you can just really quickly take those off. You could swap the board around for another one if you have multiple fingerboards, or if you're just wanting this to be out your way, you can take that down, chuck it in the gear garage, and it's out the way. So pretty handy bit of kit if you're a climber, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I am the sort of person who has multiple fingerboards. So
Yeah.
I do have a couple of these boards, and I'll have the other fingerboard just stored up there. And, you know, different fingerboards for different types of edges, different types of training. And I'll just like replace it as well. So it's been massively useful for me warming up before going to the crag, but also just keeping my fingers strong when on longer trips. Because as most climbers know, when you start going outdoor climbing, you start losing that finger strength, unless you're bouldering, of course. But yeah, it's been really good. I know that this setup is quite complicated. How easy is it going to be for, you know, other people to replicate this?
So it will depend on what van you've got. It could be varying degrees of difficult depending on what model. This one's quite tricky because the beam that goes over the door is pretty much got no square angles on it. It's very weird shape. So on this one, we just kind of had to build out to make a square surface to build the panel on. What I'd recommend for doing this is using riv nuts, which are rivet-in nuts. So it's a nice solid fixing that you can sort of secure your timbers into, just so that you know that whatever you build out from that, it's going to be nice and solid on the van. I would say if you're doing this, you want to be absolutely sure that that's nice and solid, because obviously if you're hanging on that and it comes down, it's not going to be nice. So yeah.
Now, I was certainly a difficult customer, but you know, in the long run, it worked out because you learned so much awesome stuff with all my difficulties.
I would say so. Yeah, that was good.
All right, guys, we're gonna stop there, and hope you enjoyed that video. 5 ways to make your camper van, you know, the perfect adventure van. Definitely check out roamcampervans.co.uk, and is it Roam Campers on
Roam
Instagram?
Campers.
Yeah, I'll have the links all down there in the comments below. And of course, if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe and ding that wee bell for notifications when the next video is out. Catch you next time. Hold on a cotton picking second, don't you guys go anywhere, because I've got a special surprise just for you. Sam and Duncan at Roam have very kindly offered their van expertise. So if you guys have any questions at all relating to vans or van conversions, just comment below, and for the next 7 days, they will answer each one personally.